Hello everyone, Revan619 here. I hope you're doing good. Owlcat have dropped the patch notes with the DLC at the same time, so I'm going to be recording this really hastily and then going straight to streaming so I can talk more about it. However, I'm going to go through the patch notes and also give some insights, and then I will obviously be streaming so you guys can come ask more. I'll keep that up on both Twitch and YouTube so people who come later can see those questions. So, Abelard introduced the 6th major update 1.6. So I'm going to skip all the fluff and just go straight to the highlights. Uralon the Cruel and his demons have had a massive mechanics overhaul. Yes, he has been massively reworked. Yes, he has better stats. Yes, he has a better build. Yes, he has better items. And yes, he has full items. They are all quite powerful. I highly recommend a Heretic run just to see that. Pasqal and his Forge World Origins updated and interactive augment system from the Infinite Museion. Yes, so Pasqal has had his operative stuff, his tech pre stuff moved into augments, and Forge World now has its passive changed to an augment. Many operative talents have received better scaling. Yes, they've added scaling to operative talents. Massive buff. Operative exploits now work on extra turns, as do assassin openings. Massive buff. I would dare say Arc Rifle Operative Assassin might actually be one of the top 5 builds right now, but you'll have to give me more time to play around with that. Grenades have been reworked to counter AoE attacks, can crit and receive bonuses from inter-demolitions. Well, the crit thing's new, but they were always AoE attacks getting AoE benefits. But either way, fantastic. Reworked UI for talent selection, allowing multiple filters and grouping. Obviously, I hate this because you can't change that. It just means everything's in a different place now. The UI supports special archetype resources such as lethality, tactical advantage, versatility. Yes, on your character display screen during combat, you will actually see their unique things. So their stacks versatility and their lethality, so on and so forth. Even like Master Tactician stacks. The previous build remains available through beta branches if you don't want to upgrade. Yes, this does change the base game. Do start a new save. There is a lot of changes to the prologue and Act 1. Loads of model updates, loads of new cutscenes, and some hidden dialogues in places. I'm not even sure, but I think I saw new interactions, but it might just be stuff I skipped where I've played so much before. So the DLC will not function without the update. Patch notes, Uralon the Cruel update. Uralon's Heretic Astartes origin has been updated, so he now gets more stats. Uralon has received Charge, Kick, and Combat Master abilities similar to Ulfar. 2 of those he already had, but they're now actually abilities that he has. Kick actually got nerfed. It's now cost 1 AP, but only for Astartes is it 0 AP with their boot upgrade. But yes, his demon summoning has been massively updated and overhauled, and he has a lot of items that now buff it. He even has improved initiative, and his bolt rifle is now a burst fire weapon as well. It is massively better. He's actually quite a useful master tactician, one that is going to be a lot of fun to use in Act 5 when you get him. So his updated abilities, Dark Pact. Uralon loses wounds equal to 20% of his maximum wounds, granted an ally wounds lost by Uralon times 2 heretical rank temporary wounds. Infernal Call. Uralon randomly summons one of the following demons: Pinkara, Daemonets, Plague Bearer, or Bloodletter. That demon fights for Uralon's side until the end of combat. This build has been used again if at least 9 enemies were killed in combat. This also massively gets buffed by his new unique items that have been added to his gear. These talents will significantly boost Uralon's capabilities in combat. Pleasure and Slaughter. The character's fell bonus is added to their strength. Whenever an ally deals critical damage, kills an enemy, Uralon regains fellowship bonus wounds. If an ally is a daemon or Uralon himself performs the action, he regains twice as many wounds. So, Blessings of the Dark Gods. All supporting Master Tactician abilities possesses additional effects. When used on allies or Uralon himself, they grant a damage bonus that equals their heretical rank. If the target of the ability is an allied daemon, it also gets 2 times fellowship bonus armor penetration and 3 MP. Whenever affected by fervor, Uralon can target others with linchpin, inspire, and strong point. Uralon's finished the job, now deals full damage. Yeah, he's pretty good at this. The Voice of Lorgar. As long as Uralon is conscious, Uralon's allies get 1 AP for every 2 heretical ranks they have. So yes, the heretic run, very strong at the end. Chains of Hatred. All daemons summoned by Uralon gain a bonus to weapon skill, strength, agility, toughness, perception, willpower equal to 50% of Uralon's fellowship characteristic. Whenever a summoned daemon hits, Uralon gains 10% damage dealt by the daemon. Stacks of additional advantage, or 25% of damage dealt by the daemon. Stacks of tactical advantage. If the daemon scores critical hit, Uralon's allies do not suffer from manifestation of any demons. Pretty nice. Profane Zeal. Whenever damaged, this creature gains +1 damage bonus until the end of combat. Stacks. Master of Union. Uralon gains deflection bonus equal to their total heretical ranks of his retinue. So yes, more heretics the better. The Dark Apostle's Patronage. This creature is now immune to all negative effects of demonic manifestation. New and updated unique items. So this I was talking about earlier. Scarce itemization has always been a major problem for Uralon. Yes, I've been rallying about that for 2 years. We've added a plethora of new available items for him, updating his existing items, by which they are stuck and they can't be removed. Added burst fire to his weapon. Yep. Added sweep attack to his weapon. Yep. Added plus 30 additional strength bonus. Damn, to his armor. Halo of the Dark Apostle. The wearer has plus 10 toughness. When Orchestrated Firestorm or Last Volley is active, all attacks made by summoned demons deal 100% more damage, and all attacks made by other allies deal 25% more damage. Thread of Corruption. The wearer gains 5 agility and 1 MP. The wearer does not provoke attacks of opportunity when moving, and the kick always costs 0 AP. Nice. Demonologist Gauntlets. The wearer begins combat with 2 times fellowship bonus stacks of tactical advantage plus 5 strength. He's also got Frost Covered Amulet. The wearer gains 15 initiative. You roll a d10 plus agility mod plus half perception. So plus 15 there is huge. That's like having an extra 100 agility and perception. Whenever the wearer uses Press the Advantage, the ability also affects demons summoned by the wearer. Ring of the Chaos Preacher. The wearer gains plus 10 skill, weapon skill. Whenever the summoned demon hits an enemy, the wearer gains a plus 1 bonus to fellowship or a plus 5 bonus if the attack scores a critical hit, lasting until the end of combat. Also very nice, especially with a burst fire weapon. Warlord Signet. The wearer gains plus 30 Law Warp. Whenever the target affected by the effect of Inspired performs a heroic act, the wearer immediately gains an extra turn. Yes. Yes, Uralon gets extra turns when allies score a heroic act. So he can just buff them. Like, Unholy Inspiration. The wearer gains 15% armor whenever Press the Advantage used. The number of tactical advantage stacks spent converted into temporary wounds for the wearer. Wow. Demon Bug Fixes. Uralon's demons had a number of miscalculated stats, incorrectly functioning or entirely non-functional abilities, or could lose their abilities mid-combat. Under certain circumstances, all of these have been addressed. So, updated origins. You would have seen some of this covered in my video, but we're going to go over some of this now. When augmentations coming in the Infinite Mausoleum DLC, Forge World and Pasqal's origins have been updated to better integrate and synergize with the new system. Forge World Origin now provides additional augmentation slots. It doesn't. It actually just changes the passive to an augmentation slot. So you don't actually have extra augments. It's just the passive of Forge World. Pasqal has received a unique augmentation slots with unique silent augmentations. Again, these are just his existing abilities. So Machine Spirit Communion, formula adjustments, 2 times int bonus plus number of tech priests, they're stacks of Ferrum Sanctum. So this is the unique negative for when you have augmentation, and it causes you to take extra lightning damage by 15% per stack. Some items give +1, some give +3. Now also applies the convulsion effect and tests that make the enemy staggered and increase shock damage suffered by 20% failure. It also deals more damage to enemies with high Ferranctum and reject the flesh feature. Yes, you can just stagger people with some of his abilities now, which is pretty good, but you can also stun. This will come to later. So Manipulated Push deals weapon skill bonus plus int plus number of tech priest Ferrum stacks damage. There are now also upgrades that you can multi-push, and it now costs 1 AP instead of 2 AP. So it's actually quite useful, though I wouldn't build for it because it's just not as good as his other stuff. Machine Mechandorite now reduces additional shock damage dealt to the target due to the Ferrum Sanctum effect by 5% per stack. Allies now regain 6 plus Medicaid number of target Ferrum stacks wounds on use. New talent, Reinforced Servo Drive, pushes additional enemies adjacent to Pasqal and the main target, and Fusion of Flesh and Metal. If Pasqal and the target of Machine Mechandodry have a total of 10 stacks of Ferrum Sanctum or more, the ability becomes available again. So yeah, you can reuse it. It's pretty good. System and stability. A save file created with DLC enabled could sometimes be loaded even if that corresponding DLC was later disabled, which caused all kinds of wild issues. Fixed and will no longer be loadable with appropriate message. Fixed various issues causing exceptions and excessive error log spam. Crash and soft locks. AR units sometimes wouldn't wait for other units to finish their actions before initiating initiating subsequent actions in their turn, which could softlock the game. Fixed. Apparently optimization, optimized code used in several familiar abilities, improved performance. Hopefully that means familiars work when they are equipped to allies like Idra's questline, but I doubt it. Lags and freezing. Fixed a case of massive FPS drops on system with low memory on some footfall parts. Fixed errors occurring when selecting characters and locations. Fixed surface hit HUD stuff, and fixed loading screen stuff. I did notice high rate of fire burst and obviously pyrostaff burst still does lag the game quite hard when you're hitting things and it's calculating things, so that's not quite been fixed. Narrative. General narrative changes. Fixed narrow speaker case in conversation with... Oh my god, I can't say that name. Fixed the number of error speaking cases in conversations with the High Factorum. Fixed a bug in Heinrich's romance where he could remain in the room and repeat the same dialogue over and over. Heinrich could voice his suspicion over potential corruption of Kiva Gamma even after the party had already been there and dealt with it. That's been fixed. Minor text adjustments for the dialogue with the Governor Drivestream regarding Sewerback and Gapreek families during the Magno Assessio ceremony. Fixed empty dialogue option at Vivo 6. When agreeing to wait during Jay's quest at the Ministorum, the Rogue Trader could become stuck in a sitting pose. Yes, and sometimes that could also crash. Hope that's been fixed. Fixed circumstances related to Lex Imperialis events that could cause Jay's quest at the Ministorum to become locked and impossible to finish. Yep. The game now checks the cargo for quest items in addition to the normal inventory. Cassia could not be recruited if during her recruitment cutscene she was standing in an area of effect. Fixed. Jay now correctly reacts to psychic phenomena in combat. Jay could comment on Act 3 events even if she was not there. Jade got some unique buffs and stuff, well, implants. So, Lex Imperialis content. Some minor tweaks to Solomon's dialogue. Solomon's romance epilogue will no longer be displayed if he was turned down at some point in the story or the player chose another over him. Solomon's first personal quest will now correctly fail if the journal if ignored. Familiars will no longer sometimes randomly pop up during visions and dreams. Made slight visual and sound improvements for the Discordant Servitor Orchestra. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Fixed a bug in the Administrarum where Master of Seals could disappear from the room completely without replacement after the events of the DLC. Solomon now properly ceases cleaning floors after being ordered to stop. It is no longer possible to contact the trader that sells items for familiars from Act 5. Oh, that I didn't notice. That's an interesting change. After removing Solomon from the party, the associated quest will now correctly be failed. You can no longer kiss Solomon in the final dialogue if you already turned him down earlier. Familiars no longer sometimes reappear in your party before you actually go through the events that let you return them in Act 3. Yeah, that was interesting, but it now means you lose your familiar in Act 3. That can kind of suck. Executing or sending Solomon into exile now correctly breaks the romance with him. Bad times. Void Shadows content. Sending Solomon off with his report could break the Void Shadow storyline by skipping certain state of the Void Ship Bridge. Fixed. So Yrliet. So Yrliet's base build has actually changed, and I actually think she's a lot more useful now, though she does still get massively outshined by Pasqal because he is so much stronger now. Yrliet no longer mysteriously reappears on the Void Ship like nothing happened if she was left at Komorra. Yrliet no longer rides an invisible bicycle after dialogue with Josko on the officer deck. Fix the number of visual and dialogue bugs in Yrliet's meditation quest. Yrliet's quest description in the journal now consistent with her own words about it with the Xenos you never know. Hopefully we'll get onto some of the mechanical changes there. Ah yes, it's just below. Act 2, fixed multiple error speaker stuff. Act 3, an iconoclast dialogue option related to the fate of Achilles was available repeatedly fixed. In rare circumstances, Miraz High could avoid visiting his own recruitment scene. Whilst this certainly did fit his fickle Dracarian nature, we forced him to come every time. Act 4, Heinrich no longer participate in the dialogue about Yrliet's fate in Act 3 if he was not on the Void Ship. And Act 5, if the player is allied to Kalkazar and comes to Act 5 on his invitation, the message that the enemy at the gate was defeated is no longer displayed. So, this is where I'm quite happy to add my extra bits rather than just reading off. Mechanics, balance. Commissar's method of raising morale and discipline no longer negatively affects morale, i.e. when someone dies from at all costs. That is a big buff. Damaging grenades now work as ranged area attacks, weapon attacks. They get bonuses from intelligence or demolition if you have the talent for that, and they can crit and be dodged. Assassin's aim for the opening now works during additional and interrupted turns, which is huge. Operatives analyze enemies now works during additional and interrupt turns. Yeah, now Assassin Operative Kit actually works. I've had to rework my entire builds for every Operative and Assassin build I have, because now you can build for exploits, now you can build for openings. They are much, much, much stronger. Operatives, fresh target, tide of excellence, ballistics calculations, comprehensive analysis, continuous analysis, improved tactics, offensive pattern prediction, and reactive study talents have received significantly better scaling. In most of those cases, they've actually received scaling. They also fixed the burst and area bug where you couldn't consume exploits with those types of attacks. The tide of excellence now works on all attack types. Fleet combat training was not intended to work with AoE melee attacks and no longer does. That is a massive and devastating nerf. That it sucks. But you can still use fleet combat training with offhanded area pistol to do a single melee attack, then offhand pistol shot, though that is infinitely weaker than 2 melee. Like, I can't explain it in detail how much that drops off, because the difference is between 300 and 3000 damage on that offhand attack is very apparent, and the fact that people argue against that, yeah, it's an argument I don't know how to win, because if people can't understand 3000, every attack's better than 300, don't know what to do about that. Minister and Priest Zeal now gives a percentage damage per stack instead of flat damage. Rules for obtaining these stacks have been modified to account for this change. They've also fixed the weapons Hymns of Hatred to work with Zeal, so it is really strong now if you're not going heavy bolters. But yes, Zeal is a lot more fair in the early game, and the damage is now percentage based, not, well, base damage, so it's much weaker. But Act 4, you're still one-turning everything. Act 3, you'll still instantly kill everything. It's just Act 1, instead of doing 100 damage per shot, you're just going to be doing a little bit less now. In some cases, units could receive an incorrect amount of action points during interrupt turns. Fixed a bug where Solomon could get stuck in a prone condition at Thessara, blocking the departure from the planet. Cyber Eagle's Proving Grounds will no longer proc from other additional turn sources than the Overseer. Flensing Faith is now calculated correctly as written in the formula. Oh yeah, Flensing Faith is incredibly strong. There are also augments to add Toxing on hit, meaning a Priest Blade Dance Executioner is insanely powerful now. Definitely do go that route if you want to do that. It might be in the top 5 as well for builds. Generators won't have their blood spilled by Cabela anymore. Yep, machines are now immune to bleed and toxin. Massive executioner nerf, but overall you can still balance that out. Using the Commissar's at all cost ability with burst pistols no longer incorrectly increases the damage to enemies. Whoops. Some Cyber Raven abilities stopped working until the end of combat if Raven got knocked out and then returned to combat. Fixed. That's huge, by the way. That makes those builds finally playable. In the rare circumstances when attacking an NPC out of combat, other neighbouring NPCs didn't get triggered, resulting in the battle with only a single unit. Fixed. Sometimes this bugged out when you were just going to the palace in Act 2. That's also been fixed. Wisdom of Tech Guard's bonus worked on the whole party, but the not only the Rogue Trader as intended. Fixed. Oh, they've changed a lot of colony things, by the way, so you're going to see that in Act 2 and Act 4, as well as a whole new colony. Fixed an issue where a companion with Overseer archetype and familiars rejoined the party mid-combat, such as the random encounter on the Void Ship. It could cause a familiar to act independently and a separate unit in the initiative. Yeah, that was an issue. Grenadier talent now correctly displayed in the talents tab, which is nice. Aldari Chainsaws now correctly spend MP after melee attacks. This was a nerf that happened ages ago, so I don't know why it's in the patch note now. But yeah, I said that Aldari Chainswords didn't spend MP on attack, and I asked if Power Swords for Aldari could be buffed to also do this, and instead they misheard me and they're like, nerf it all, and I was like, oh, now Aldari weapons are useless. So yeah, there's no reason to ever pick the Aldari weapons. The Xeno Mercenary on the Heartless fight lacked some of the Jukari associated features, now fixed. Lead by Example now correctly gives a buff to the officer on the third use of the ability, which is nice. Blade Dancer, Desperate Measures now correctly applies traumas even if the jump sequence ends early due to lack of targets. Also a buff for Blade Dancer execution and trauma builds. Theodora's Plasma Pistol will no longer overheat in the prologue. She's hot enough as is. I didn't notice that. I just played away from her because I was scared she was going to blow me up, but that'll be nice. Do My Part talent now correctly works with the Executioner archetype. Yep, that's good that that actually now works. Chorda's Sorn Song sometimes caused her to become stuck in combat. Ha! Plague Bearer's Putrid Absence effect was not working. Fixed. Oh my god, the Plague Bearer encounters suck in warp events. You just get spammed by so many grenades and area effects that your party can just die if you don't get a turn. It is horrible without a Grand Strategist before level 30. Momentum could not be gained during certain multi-phase encounters after moving to the next phase. Fixed. Fixed failed degradation calculation on some biomancy abilities. Fixed incorrect armor calculation on some pyromancy abilities. So I'm guessing that this might be around melting armor. I didn't test it too much, but I do plan to be doing that in my current builds for the next stream. Some effects from Euphrates 2 encountered could persist after combat incorrectly fixed. Yep, that's because the Act 2 and the Act 4 Forge World were originally one location that got separated into two separate zones, but they didn't fix that being removed. Ranged abilities obtained from melee weapons could be parried, which looks very weird. Fix is no longer able to parry such abilities. This is talking specifically about pyro staffs. So their fix for this was to remove the weapon skill, crit chance and attack roll from pyromancy staffs, but they still remain a melee feature. This means that the crit chance of pyro staffs drastically dropped, and it means that enemies can still dodge it, and it also means they still scale for melee talents and abilities. It's a half fix. Hopefully Alcat takes a second look at that. Fixed an issue where the Daemon engine failed to gain an interrupt turn from certain damage types, burst, whilst enraged. Additionally, the interrupt behavior now correctly triggers on subsequent attacks whilst the round, rather than immediately upon entering the enraged state. Yeah, with the Listening of Hatred nerf, Argenta no longer one bursts him. She now has to do 2 bursts. AoE attacks sometimes did not remove exploits while still benefiting them. Fixed, yep, AoE attacks and burst were both fixed with that. Forge of Purpose locomotion systems now gives correct amount of MP, and yes, Pasqal now has his Forge of Purpose. Oh, that's in the next one. Was missing analytic systems for his Forge World bonus. Fixed. Yes, he now has that augment. Reckless Strike now correctly makes the targeted enemy do ranged attacks against the attacker. I don't remember it ever didn't. Soldiers Never Stop Shooting talent could proc during additional and interrupt turns, which was not intended. Well, that's not Soldier, that's Fortress World, but yes. In rare circumstances, the AP cost of attacks with some weapons could become negative. Fixed. A number of abilities don't correctly reapply their penalties or bonuses after loading the save. Fixed. Number of abilities could only be used by the character out of combat stats, ignoring the buffs during combat. Fixed. Flying Familiars could sometimes randomly remove exploits from enemies they simply flew over. That's funny. Enemies would sometimes parry ranged abilities without being able to. Fixed. Blade Dancers and Rock Souls attacks are considered a separate category for Arc Militant's versatility. That's cool. You can now stack Blade Dance and then do a Rockstar attack. After finishing the battle with Uralon, the combat now resets before the next encounter. You still keep all your buffs, so I don't know what that's talking about. No, it doesn't. You Serve Me now correctly interacts with the Servo Skull Swarm. Yay! The worst Origin can now use this. Yeah. Some abilities have received descriptions that use may provoke attacks of opportunity, fixed a number of ability bugs that were in the combat with the Undying Emperor. Heavy Web's talent now works correctly. Assassin's Witness status now properly displays its icon. Assassin's Lethality didn't scale from dodge penetration correctly. Fixed. Interesting. During the Echoes of the Past quest, Idra will no longer try to use her overseer abilities without Vesper nearby. I did ask about that earlier. Multiple Imperial World, Fortress World, Nobility, Astral Military Commander, and Commissar talents worked incorrectly under rare circumstances or didn't interact with certain archetype abilities or items. These have been addressed. Worryingly, I did not see a Veil of Blades fix in all of that. I haven't tested that because I wouldn't take Veil of Blades in Tier 1, so that'll be interesting to see if they fix the parry for Blade Dancer's Veil of Blades. So, some items have also been fixed. Navy Breacher boots are no longer triggered by non-area attack abilities, which is nice. One of the Aldari armors added in 1.5 update didn't have any descriptions and effects fixed. Yeah, this is the Cold Blood. Basically, it's Blessed Bolter casing, but for Aldari sniper rifles. So yeah, that's an interesting pick now for Yrliet. Effects of sacrifice and reduplication of weakness now correctly stack. Mars Pattern Bolt Pistol had incorrect AP costs of reloads fixed. Yay, the Mars Pattern Bolt Pistol is now not like 3 AP to reload. Yeah, but there's still no bolt pistols worth using till you get there. So bolt pistols still aren't worth, in my opinion. Wolftooth Necklace was applying its effect inconsistently fixed. That's nice. Lex Imperial items related to familiars will no longer drop if the player does not have the DLC. Oh, get nerfed. You can no longer put Blade Shard into cargo, although it wouldn't be recommended holding it close to your body either. Von Valancius Cloak can now be worn by companions. Yeah, that was accidentally done last update. Some fusion guns lacked ability descriptions fixed. Added missing descriptions for the unique features of the Pyre. Ooh, I didn't know what the unique features that had. Their Render's effect now correctly interacts with Psi rating gained from Shimmering Emotion. Nice. Bayonet Chain Knife now correctly interacts with Bayonet Strike. Litany of the Imperial Fury was not working with non-attacking powers. Fixed. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Militant's Cloak bonus now correctly applies to our melee abilities. Yeah, that's also really powerful. Fixed Axes not applying bleeding effects via sweep in some circumstances. Yeah, we didn't use that because it was barely useful. Staff of Endless Flame caused the Veil to degrade by 1 instead of by 3 after the Heroic Act. Fixed. Swap names for the Enforcers like Carapace and improved Enforcers like Carapace, as the form was in fact improved on the latter. And they actually drop now, so you'll see some new models for that. Biophysical Distortion caused damage on the Psyker's turn instead of the enemy's turn. Fixed. Lullaby of Shales bonus was applied to all damage dealt, not just its own damage. Fixed. Incredibly powerful sniper, and yeah, I use on it Yrliet's build now. RBT's handcuff now correctly worked on Demonettes in random warp encounter. Yeah, I got them nerfed because I used them in Alpha and EA like ages ago for that DLC. But yeah, fixed severed hands description to display -30 penalty instead of +30 penalty. Yep. Added missing descriptions of unique features of Lilithane's Calm, and Hymn of Vehemence was reworked once again, synchronized with the updated Priest. Yep, I already mentioned that one, so that's very nice. And fixed the bonus calculations in the Starmus Scars tooltip. So yeah, pretty good. I'm going to skip the arts visuals, locations, because obviously people don't care about that for me. Cutscene improved. Yep, the cutscene of the arrival to Dark Honest and to Achilles beginning of Act 3, and the improved cutscene with the execution of Chorda's victim in Footfall. Yeah, these are all worth watching. Animation. Some power weapons didn't have the vigil effects on them fixed. Aldari Guardians at Kezatoma now hold melee weapons correctly. Pasqal's Mechaniterites will no longer remain on the model if re-specialized, removed from the talents raised to them. So Pasqal was meant to get a really OP item in Act 3 if you bring him there. He didn't on my run, and I did point out to the devs that it wasn't giving him that, so hopefully that is fixed. But as for the user interface and quality of life things, we don't care about that. And there's a lot of stuff in the general here, but a lot of that stuff here is going to be just some UI stuff. But as for the mechanical stuff, there is a lot to go over. That's all we've got for some of those made changes. There's actually quite a lot more. There's been a lot of talent reworks and debuffs that they didn't mention here, such as Degraded Defense has been nerfed by about 90%. So it's going to be very interesting to see some of the extra things. The augments have obviously come in, there's a lot of stuff, but I'm going to quickly render this and I'm going to start streaming because obviously people are going to be wanting those drops, and people, more importantly, are going to be wanting to start asking me more questions, because these patch notes actually don't reveal the whole story. And whilst I could sit here and explain all the different mechanical changes with like overcharge protocols, I think it's just better if I get to live and get to showing that. So if you guys watching this on YouTube, do follow over on Twitch and YouTube. I'll be streaming on both once this is rendered. Bye for now.